Order. Ms. Carlson, why don't you go ahead and proceed?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll start on page 41. Priority number 12, construction. I'd like to just start by saying you won't see East High School here. We are anticipating that request to come in next year. Our rough numbers are between $36 and $38 million for that project. Moorcroft Junior High School, $12,632,827 to go in there and do that large level component project for that junior high school. ARP offsite infrastructure, the design on ARP is at about 60% complete at this point. Through that process, we have been interacting, the district as well as the department, with the county. We have increased the size of that facility from where we had originally planned, from 450 students to 550 students. And obviously, when you do that, you increase impacts to the local infrastructure. So this are preliminary money that we're asking for that will be related probably to street improvements and infrastructure improvements that are needed to accommodate that new facility. Hobbs Elementary School, $33,298,901 to construct that new Hobbs Elementary School. Rendezvous Elementary School in Fremont 25, $29,934,003. So our total construction request that will come from the School Foundation Fund was approved by the governor, $77,359,731 as a one-time request. I would ask if there's any questions regarding those construction projects.
Okay, Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for being here with us. I heard you talk sort of about some options in terms of the Rendezvous Elementary School in Fremont County, and that it's too large for current needs, still in good condition, maybe a recommendation for demo, but maybe use for an alternative school. If I've misunderstood, please correct me. And then what does that mean if it's determined that it should be used for an alternative school? How does that impact this request under the construction line item? Thank you.
Ms. Carlson.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Sherwood, it will not affect this rendezvous request. This is to build a brand-new facility for this elementary school. So the question with the existing rendezvous school is whether we'll demo it or whether we'll decide that we can accommodate the alternative school in that facility in an effective manner, but will not affect this request.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this would be a new location, not on the existing site.
Mr. Chairman, it is on the existing site. Fremont 25 has a very large parcel here. It was a junior high, and so there's a track and field situation located right there. It will be built there. The school district also had some foresight and bought 3 lots that come in adjacent. They'll put in a brand-new bus drop-off loop in that area. So it will go on the same site, so we don't need swing space to build this facility, which certainly helps save on some costs.
Okay. Further questions on this construction? Okay. Seeing none, please go ahead and proceed.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought at this point, based on questions we've received in the past, I might just give the committee an update on what we're kind of forecasting here for the next few years that you might see coming in this design and construction realm. So I'd like to go, sorry about that. Just go through a list of projects that are kind of on our radar. Some I have rough dollar figures for and some I do not. Campbell 1, Campbell County High School, you will see us come in for a request for those asbestos abatement funds. The design is proceeding there. We will have a good value for the cost to abate that asbestos when they demo the old building. So unknown cost now, but I see that for forthcoming
Mr.
next
Chairman.
session.
Okay.
Is there a page that we're looking at,
This
or?
is just a report that she's providing us. We're about page 43, but we're getting a glimpse into the future with this report. And go ahead and finish with Campbell County, and then I've got questions about Campbell County.
I think, Mr. Chairman, that's all I had on Campbell County, so I entertain that question.
Okay, so you've got the asbestos. We don't know where we're at until we do some demolition and construction, so we'll figure that out. What was the figure in the, there was a figure in a previous budget request at one time, it was an estimate, I believe.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize, I can't remember. We did ask for the dollars to demolish that facility. This is abatement only, because we really need that investigation finished. But I'll tell you what, our staff is listening. I will have them pull that amount of requests that we asked for last year
And I know
for
it was
demolition
just-
funds.
Yeah, I know it was just an estimate, because you really can't tell how bad it's gonna be.
Yes.
So what is the status of both the bus barn in Campbell County and the construction of the high school? We've funded most of the construction of the high school, and definitely had the design portion done. I've heard around town that we're going to start by building a new stadium. Just want to confirm that. And I just heard recently that there may be some of the old facility kept instead of demolishing the entire thing. So I'd like a little bit of an update on that. The bus barn, I understand we've changed locations now, so if you could just tell us what that's done to the construction schedule.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, so we'll talk about the high school first. We are at about 10% design on that, moving upwards to 35. They are working on the stadium package to go in place first. There were some funds appropriated last year effective to move forward with that portion of the construction. So we are still evaluating really site conditions and foundation types, certainly conditions with water levels there. So we're working on that one, and that design is proceeding at this time. Transportation facility, we're at 35%, I believe. Is that correct? Like 35%. And that project is currently over budget. A lot of that related to the new site and the site change. But a lot of things, we don't think there was probably enough funding put in for the amount of parking lot that you need when you have that many buses. They've got near 150 buses. So we are really working close with the district. We are going to progress. We've asked them to break it into what they have to have and then break alternatives out that we could parse and piece in depending on how that comes together. But right now, it certainly looks like they're over budget. We do know we're going to need some more money. We may have some funding available in that 24 appropriation of that 95 million. That will be the first place that we look to see if we can bring that project together.
So, two questions, and you may need to get some of this data, but what is the per student bus count in other locations compared to this location, this district? And then what is the anticipated dollar amount that we're short right now?
Mr. Chairman, I would say our estimated dollar figure that we're short is somewhere between $6 and $8 million.
Okay.
It's a significant figure. With regards to the per student and bus, I would have to dig into that further. Have you looked at that, John? They
Sorry, Miss.
asked about like a per student busing ratio compared to other districts. I don't think we have checked into that.
Yeah, I mean, basically at this point, Mr. Chairman, John Rex, the School Facility Division Construction Management Supervisor. At this point, basically what we know is the quantity of buses that they have and the different size of buses and vehicles that they have to service through that facility. Really don't know how full those buses are on a daily basis.
I'll have our staff look into that for me then. All right, thank you. I'm going to go with co-chair, and then vice chair, and then vice chair. So Mr. Cruz.
This is at my peril, I'm like you, this is
Okay,
in my
I'll start with you,
district.
Vice Chairman.
So I may be in a bind. Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. McComey, staff. Casper only has one stadium for both schools. We just built one new one in Campbell County. What would be the cost difference between doing a major digital type upgrade so they could have a shared facility, which I'm sure they're not gonna like. That's, like I said, this is my district. But we're the guys paying the bill for it. And I actually honestly look at football facilities as an enhancement, not as part of the school, because it's really not what's there. So what's the cost difference between going in that fairly new facility and upgrading it? So, because as I understand, Casper does share one, correct? Do they have two stadiums in Casper?
Mr. Chairman, Senator
We'll stop
Driscoll, I
there.
believe they do have two stadiums in Casper, but I just want to clarify that the state and the school facilities division do not allocate state-funded dollars for the purpose of building necessarily a stadium. We do build the football field and the track, but we don't even fund bleachers for those. So if they want just a simple aluminum bleacher setup, that comes from other district funds, just like a full-blown stadium like they're proposing in Campbell County High School would come from their own funds.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. That helps for all of us, I think. Follow up a little bit. Have they picked a spot for the new school? Because I'd understood and we didn't get quite there with Mr. Chairman. Are they keeping part of the old school or are we taking it totally down?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Driscoll, that is correct. There is approximately 24,000 square feet of a separate building that's on campus. I think we call it the G building right now, and that's where a lot of their industrial arts and CTE type classes take place. That particular building we felt like was in good enough shape to maintain and to keep. So once we went through the Mercer process and determined based on their projected enrollment what the appropriate amount of square footage was for their new school, it did give them some funds to do some of that refurbishment in that particular building to make it new like the other school, but we also deducted the total square footage of that building from the allowable square footage so that the new footprint for the new school and that building are going to total what's allowable under the current guidelines.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, well done. This is exactly what we expect out of you folks, and I think you're doing well. Thank you. It's nice to have it out. I will not spread misinformation, we'll spread information. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Vice Chairman Pendergraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to back up on the bus barn just a little bit. What precipitated the need to move it to a different location and thereby increase the cost? And what information came in that wasn't available from the beginning?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Pendergraft, I'm going to try to be as general and as concise as I can be here because this could get extremely complicated and drawn out. But essentially, according to statute, the districts have the ability to fix their site or select where their sites are. There was a previous site that we had planned for this particular building, and my understanding is that the district itself was running up against a lot of issues with both the local community and the city in regards to what their planned usage of that site was going to be and what the noise levels were going to be and how it affected the traffic and so on and so forth in that area. And so the district made the decision to move to this other site that they had previously brought into their inventory. They had been saving that for eventually another elementary school, but they believe that there's enough acreage on that site to accommodate both, and that's what precipitated that change.
Follow up?
Mr. Chairman, if I could weigh in a little bit too on that. So one of the things I think in the overall cost analysis, the site has poor soils. So there's a lot of work in the site prep, as Mr. Rex has mentioned, that's added to this cost. Affects the building on how the building's gonna be set and the foundation for the building. So there's some increased cost there, as well as then the parking lot. And as I mentioned earlier in my presentation this morning, Campbell County has the most buses and actually travels the most miles of the state of any school district. So they've got an awful lot of buses. We've spent a lot of time going back and forth with the district and their consultants, analyzing the pavement structure and thickness. Originally, they were looking, I believe it was like 18 inches of crushed base and then 6 inches of plant mix pavement on that site. And we're talking acres of pavement because of the number of buses. That's actually the same as, or maybe even a thicker section than we have on I-90, the interstate up there, to be able to get the proper, what we call R values and the proper thicknesses. They've gone back, we've asked them to go back and look at it, they did. They're adding fabric, and so they're gonna lose about roughly half of that thickness of the crushed base to haul in there by adding a fabric. So that reduced that down, but the plant mix stays the same. So then after we got that report, wearing my old YDOT hat, I reached out to YDOT and said, does this fit? Does it, look at the data the consultants utilized, look at their numbers. They use the AASHTO 1994 guidelines, which is what most state agencies use for determining the overall thickness of your pavement as well as your subgrades. They all add into a total value. You take the soils, you take the crushed base, you take the plant mix, you come up with an R value based on what's going to be there. So as Mr. Rex has indicated, what we did was get a list of every bus that the district has and what's the weight of that bus, the number of axles on there. So you design based on axles, number of axles over a 20-year time period. I provided that to YDOT. They ran through that and looked at that, came back with some questions. We sent that to the consultant, came back with more. I again ran that through YDOT, and YDOT came back and said, it looks like their thickness is okay. YDOT has now changed over in the last few years to a new design parameters called a mechanistic review. A lot of state DOTs are still using the 1994. The only difference between the two, the crushed base, the fabric was the same, is they felt we could maybe get by with an extra inch less of plant mix, but overall the design was okay. But again, when you come back and you look at literally the acreage that is there, that's a big driver in the cost of that facility. The other thing that the district has done, and we're working with them on, is how much, so now we know what that thickness is, how can we continue to reduce the cost that we can? And so their original concept was looking ahead 20 years, how many buses are we gonna have in 20 years? What's the parking spots, the number of parking spots? And then plugging all these buses in for winter starts, things like that. What do we need out there? We've come back and said, well, based on population growth that we can see right now, you've got this bigger overall acreage, but do we really need to pave that whole area? And so the conversation ongoing with the district, and I think that they're on board with that, but maybe we don't need to pave quite as big an area and have it available in the future. So they've taken off some of the pavement structure and we're going to more crushed base out on the end where they want to do their training for the bus drivers. And keep in mind, in Campbell County, they don't just do training for their bus drivers. There's a number of other districts bring their people in to train there in their facility. And so what we're gonna do is stub out some of the electrical and that things underground and have them available so that in the future, if we ever have to go and add more plant mix, we can do that. So we're trying to figure out what's the right size, reduce those costs the best we can, and we're moving forward with that, so.
Okay. Representative Angelos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the update on that building. That was one of my questions for you. Is there a plan? Do you have a timeline of when we think we could have it wrapped up so we could maybe get started on it? I think that's where we're at, is we're coming up on a construction season. So I understand there's probably going to need to be some more funds if we can't come to an agreement. But yeah, if you could just give maybe the district some assurance on what we're looking at on a timeline.
Mr. Chairman, I'll let John speak to that in a little more detail, but I sat in on the last design plan meeting when we were looking at going from the 35 to 60%. We're proceeding to let them move forward now that we've kind of looked at the numbers and everybody's kind of agreed, yeah, we're coming closer to those dollars that we think need to be done. There was a few things the district was gonna come back at and look in the cost analysis, and again, that's less pavement and a few other things within the building. So we are moving forward with that 65% design. Because we've done the addition, we'll still do another value engineering look, but I think we're looking at doing that in-house rather than reaching outside, which takes longer to get the information, consultant stuff, because we have gone back and forth trying to reduce this so many times. So we're hoping we can have the money available internal. We don't have to come back and ask for more money, and so that's kind of our goal at this point in time.
And same question for the high school, we're gonna do the stadium first. When are we gonna break ground on the stadium?
Mr. Chairman, my understanding is that actually there's two preliminary packages going out. The first one's a rather small one in order to prepare a temporary parking lot, because they're gonna have to disturb the existing student parking lot in order to do the stadium package. So they're gonna do that first, and my understanding is they're gonna bid that in January. I've also been told that their plans are to be ready to bid for the stadium package in February. Typically, those are about a 45 to 60-day window for bid openings and advertising. So I would anticipate that sometime early spring, probably we'll be putting a shovel in the ground on the stadium portion, probably much sooner on the parking lot portion. That one will move quite a bit faster.
Do you know where this parking is going? I'm trying to envision where they're gonna put more parking.
There's kind of I don't necessarily want to call it an athletic field, but there's kind of a play field to the south of the existing building. That's going to be where the temporary parking is going to be located. And eventually we'll reclaim that and go back to a grass play field area.
So we're building parking lots and then turn them down. All right. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, just in light of that, I wanted to say that part of the cost-saving measures we're implementing in order to bring this project in within budget and to be sensitive to the state's funding is we're going to mill the existing student parking lot and use those millings to create the temporary parking lot.
Good.
Eventually, we'll probably find another use for those on site as well.
Very good. Appreciate that. Okay. All right, Director Richards.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, just to follow up on one prior question a while back, there was appropriated $6.3 million for the purposes of demolition.
Thank you. And will we be able to figure out what the either per student bus count is or the per bus student count is? I hope there's not more than one bus per student.
I think we can look into that for you. I believe we can
All right,
do something
that'd be
on
great.
enrollment.
Mr. Chairman, I believe they've got around 8,800 students in the district and 176 buses. I'm not sure that necessarily answers your question, but
Okay.
it
We
kind
can
of
do
gives
the
you a
math from
general
there.
idea.
There, perfect, thank you. That was the math I was looking for. Appreciate it. Okay, any other questions on the future? All right, appreciate you bringing that report and sharing with us, filling us in kind of what to anticipate.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I will run down through the rest of the list
Yes.
then. Laramie 1, asbestos abatement for Hobbs Elementary. As we go down through here, you'll see our request for the demolition. We'll come back with the request for the asbestos abatement. That abatement cost can swing so far depending on what work maybe is already, maybe some's been mitigated, some hasn't. They can really vary. So we will be back next year, once the design progresses enough to have that investigation complete and request asbestos funds. Laramie One construction funds for East High School, we talked about that. Our rough estimate is $36 to $38 million for that addition. Frontier Academy, again, that Mercer is working through the process, amount at this point unknown. Fremont 25, I have gone ahead and listed the demolition and abatement for Rendezvous Elementary School here, $1.8 to $2 million. That just in anticipation that if that facility does not work out for the alternative school. We do have 11 pending Mercer studies that are still ongoing that we will be back with requests on if needed. I do think we may have a couple coming back that may be in do nothing at this point in time. 2028, you'll see us in here with a request for Saddle Ridge 2 here in Cheyenne, estimated cost $40 million. That is one we'll be watching close with the district. You know, right now they have additional modulars at Saddle Ridge 1. Depending on how the growth continues, it may be in addition to Saddle Ridge 1. What we put in our estimate was a new school, Saddle Ridge 2. Laramie 1 Meadowlark Elementary Edition, that's the 5-6 for the East Triad. That requests 2029, estimated cost roughly $25 million. And then Cole Elementary School in 2030, that would be a brand-new elementary school estimated at $40 to $45 million. So that's kind of at least what we're aware of right now.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Go ahead, Vice Chairman Pendergraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You kind of preempted one of my notes to have an earlier question. I'm looking back 25, 30 years, we've done a lot of building. And so kind of from 50,000 feet, looking ahead the next 5 to 10 years, are we going to take a breather for a while? Are things kind of easing up? Do you see some major changes in the future? It seems like we're doing a lot of smaller schools, and things like that, rather than the monster projects. Just where are we at?
Dr. McCollum?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, always hate those crystal ball questions, but I've been thinking the same thing. Trying to figure out maybe where we're headed again, that strategic plan, I think will give us a lot better idea of that. So you build new schools or you do modifications to schools, capacity or condition. I think the major maintenance work and the increases that were given for major maintenance dollars will help from the capacity or the condition standpoint. So I think we'll see fewer. Again, when the Campbell cases came about and stuff, you had a lot of older schools out there, and so you had this big backlog based on condition and those sort of things. And then capacity is the other one. And what we're currently seeing is this downward trend in capacity. And again, this year, it's down a bunch. And it's just not a Wyoming thing. This is a national thing. I mean, I have started tracking that because of questions from the select committee this past year. And in Colorado and Florida, Utah in particular, they're closing a lot of schools. And some of them, like Utah, they're down like in this one district, like 9,000, 10,000 students, things like that. So it's just not Wyoming. I mean, it's just a national trend. So based on capacity, I think you're going to see fewer of those than we did. When I was first, in 2015, first director here, a lot of our projects were based on capacity needs. A lot of them were. And so again, looking at the big schools, I was asked a question, I think last year by Chairman Bear, are we going to see any more big projects? And I said, no, I want to clarify that. Okay. I didn't ask, well, what's a big project? Is a big project 100 million, 150 million, or is a big project 45 million? To me, 45 million is a lot of money. I know constituents sitting out there, we throw out these numbers of, 45 million and they're going, oh my God, And so I don't see the big high school projects and things like that coming forward. We're doing a good job on those with the Campbell, the Rock Springs, the addition here in the east and some of that. But that doesn't mean tomorrow, the economy, something might happen, mineral industry here and we have some more capacity needs that are coming forward. But right now, the trend is down. Again, the latest information we have, it's down. And so that capacity, I think you're going to see fewer of those. Laramie 1, the Mercer study, so we included it was the elementary, we included 8 elementaries in that we were, we looked at all their elementaries, but out of that, when we're all said and done, we're gonna take 8 schools offline, elementary schools, and the average age of those was like 68 years at the time, right now, and they'd be in the 80 years by the time we're done. Ms. Carlson laid out 2030, we're doing this, and we take them offline. You're gonna see the age of those buildings when it's all said and done, it was something like 36 years old for all of the elementaries in this district, for the average. So when you look at that, and was like 10 years from now, when it's all said and done, those are gonna be newer schools, and we're designing, we made some design changes this year, decisions on how we design schools. So we know in the future it's cheaper to add an addition than build the whole school. So in the past, one of the things that's been our Achilles heel, I think, when schools were built 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, a lot of times they centralized where the gym was, where the cafeteria was, and they were on the interior of the building. So now you add on, and this is the case with Rock Springs, they had to have like 8 or 9 lunch periods because they had added 3 additions onto Rock Springs High School, and they couldn't serve all the students in the day. And so so what are we doing now? In our designs, we're requiring that those, the gyms, the cafeterias, the common space is on the exterior of the building. And all of our new buildings are being designed to have at least 1 addition onto those. So we're looking where we place utilities and all of that. So that in the future, from a capacity standpoint, we can add an addition. And if we need to expand those cafeterias and stuff, so hopefully we can add not 1, but 2 and 3 to take care of capacity. We can add on to the cafeteria because it's on the exterior of the building to take care of that issue. So that's something that we've recently instituted in the last year. In addition to that, before, when we had the addition, so we would say you need to design in a future addition, we didn't give them the extra square footage up front. So for that 200 extra students on a building for that addition, we're giving them right now the common space and the lunchroom space to accommodate that. So I think in the long run, that's gonna put us in a lot better place to take care of capacity problems also.
Follow-up, go ahead, Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Follow-up is actually for Mr. Richards. In light of what we've just heard, does that maybe alter your long-term forecast in looking at the shortfalls in the SFP?
Mr. Richards?
Mr. Chairman, if anything, I think we're still forecasting on a pretty conservative amount. Even in the last few years, they have dramatically exceeded our forecast because of the Rock Springs and Campbell County schools that tend to overwhelm that.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? Seeing none, let's move on. And I'm going to ask on these leases, you don't need to go down through them individually, but I'll allow the committee to ask if they have questions about any of these individual leases, and we'll go ahead and go from there.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, starting on page 44, we are statutorily required to make these lease payments, so you'll see charter school leases there. I'd like to point out that, we have to prepare our budget very early, so we are presenting a draft budget to our commission in June. We use the best available data that we can at that point in time, but we're almost a year out by the time we come to you and ask for that money. And so, these are based on our best guess, based on putting that payment together that far ahead. So charter schools, $6,332,928 for charter school leases based on information we have to date. Modular lease payments, these are modulars that are placed at school facilities that do have a capacity problem. So you will see the 2 modulars at Saddle Ridge here, and also one at Sunrise, also here in Cheyenne, $52,125,000. 52,000, sorry, $125 for modulars.
Okay, let's just open it up for questions real quick, since we went so quickly over those. Go
Yep.
ahead, Representative Harrelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Looking at Prairie View Community School, so just get my head wrapped around these leases. Obviously, that is the prior school in Chugwater, and then the old prior school in Chugwater that they now have taken over. So is this lease payment going to Platte County School District number one? Is that where this lease payment goes, or exactly who is this lease payment being paid to?
Mr. Chairman, so by statute, the payments are made to the district. They funnel through the district to the charter school. So with regards to Chugwater, the K-12 facility, which is a district building, there is no lease payment made for that facility. This payment is for the elementary school, which they have done some remodeling, fixed the kitchen, and are now housing kids in that old Chugwater Elementary School, which was purchased by an investor, and they are leasing that facility from that investor. It will go through the district to the charter school.
Okay. Any other questions on the charter school leases? Seeing none, any questions on the modular leases? Ms. Carlson, you said that Sunrise only had 1 and the other 2 had 2 units. Did I hear you correctly?
So Saddle Ridge 1 and 2, so those are 2 modulars, both located at Saddle Ridge 1
So this is
school.
per, the 17,375 is for each modular?
Correct.
Okay, and each of these locations has 1. Got it
Yep.
now. Okay. All right, seeing no further questions, please proceed.
All right, Mr. Chairman, the governor did approve that one-time request of $6,385,053. Our next request, Mr. Chairman, is a new request, a new funding request, something we haven't had in place before. This is for a charter school contingency fund request. As I mentioned earlier, we are statutorily required to pay those leases. And there's been some recent legislative changes that have made us consider this contingency fund idea. Those recent requests, a charter school used to have to be in operation for 3 years before we ever made a lease payment to that charter school. That was removed, and now we've got to pay them right away. We don't always even know when a charter, how many charter schools are coming, when they're going to open, those sorts of things, and or what their enrollment will be. So again, we just don't have the data available to really make an educated guess on the amount of a lease payment. There was the elimination of the requirement that we wouldn't pay a lease if there was adequate and available space within the district. That went away. So again, we may end up paying a lease there. And then a removal of the cap on the number of authorized charter schools. We could plan, but now there's no moratorium anymore. So we don't know. We're, at least at the time, hearing potentially 4 to 6 applications coming in this spring. So what we did to calculate this is we looked across our charter schools. We calculated an average cost, and we said, we'll ask for enough money for 2. Some of the other things that this contingency fund would allow us is sometimes, as you can see, and we've just seen the new numbers, the ADM is changing fast on these charter schools. It's increasing. That can increase the amount of their lease payment depending on the space. Some of them are going in and putting additions on. Dollars per square foot are changing. The other value that changes a lot is the operations and maintenance value. By statute, we have to remove that from our payment so they don't get paid twice for that operations and maintenance of that facility. And so all of those things come in and can cause a swing or a change in these lease payments beyond what our best guess was a year ago when we finally get the money, right? So we do the best we can, but all these changes can adjust what those payments are to go to the districts. If we look at our wording here, our concept was that we make this very similar to our Land Opportunity Fund. We would have it not reverting, but the money would sit there, and it would have to go before our commission for use, so it would be approved. We would report that to JAC and the Select Committee monthly, just like we do all of our other funding programs, and it would be at the discretion of the commission. And so that would be our request. We're afraid if it reverts, you'll hear us here every year, probably asking for money to replace that. So with that, it just gives us some fiscal flexibility, ensure that we can meet the statutory requirements. Our request, $1,792,976 from the School Foundation Fund. This was approved by the governor, shown there as a one-time request as submitted. And with that, I'd take any questions.
Any questions on this contingency fund? It's a new fund. Any questions? Ms. Carlson, you mentioned at the beginning, we pay these leases a year in the arrears. There's been some discussion about this body changing that, but we pay them a year in the arrears, which means that there's a lease agreement out there. But this contingency fund is for uncertainty. I can understand on those 4 to 6 new ones coming online, there's no lease agreed to yet. And so is this only for new schools coming on, or is there a need for contingency for the ongoing leases?
Mr. Chairman, there is a need for money for ongoing leases. We'll see changes in ADM from where we calculated our ADM. I was just looking at some of the new numbers that have just come out. So we based our estimates for these charter schools on basically the older numbers, but we can look at Cheyenne Classical went up 72 students this year. We do try to accommodate, if we know they're bringing a new grade in, we accommodate for that in our estimates. We can look what the average grade size is, and we add that in, knowing that they're going to be adding those. But these numbers just jump a lot. Prairie View Community School went from 180 students to 252 students. I'm sure we didn't accommodate for quite that many.
So these lease agreements are based on ADM then?
ADM and their allowable square footage. Now, if they're renting a building, we pay the lesser of the two. So if their allowable square footage, will drive 10,000 and they rent 16,000, we're only going to pay for 10,000 square feet. If it drives 10,000 and they only have 8,000, we're going to pay for 8,000 square feet. So we're always paying for the lesser of the two.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay. All right. No further questions. Please proceed.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I will move on to page 49. This is our priority number 14, unanticipated funding. As is typical, there's an unanticipated fund. It is 6% of the costs for your planning, design, construction component, and demolition. In this particular year, we didn't have a request for any planning funds. So this is 6% based on those projects that we have previously talked about, and the component and demolition yet to be discussed. Also, you'll see in our justification there under item C, we mentioned safety and security. There was $600,000 for that. In that, the Select Committee asked that be incorporated in the $10 million for safety and security that we'll discuss here in just a minute. So this is a request for $7,642,895, which was approved by the governor as a one-time request.
Okay. Questions about the 6% unanticipated funding? Just a calculation based on the overall account, all right?
Correct.
No questions, please proceed.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'm moving on to page 52. Priority number 13, demolition. Our projects listed here is ARP Elementary School, the abatement and demolition. As I mentioned earlier, the design of ARP Elementary is about 60%. Originally, that footprint wasn't going to be over the top of the existing school, but because we increased the size by 100 students, it now is within the footprint of the new school, which they're looking to go out with their bid here fairly soon. Request of $1,286,510. We are asking for that funding available immediately so we can get in there and go to work to get that facility demolished. Any questions on that demo project before I move on?
Any questions on the ARP school? None, please proceed.
Okay. Valley View Elementary School, this is for abatement and demolition. This school has been in the mothball status since 2020. By the deed that was made in 1963, if that facility was closed for 5 consecutive years, it was to revert back to the landowner. And so we are at that point. The landowner wants that facility removed, and so is $500,000 for us to go in and abate and remove that. I just say this was a pretty good investment. The district paid $1 for it, and they've been using this piece of property since 1963. So,
Very good.
any questions on Valley View?
Any questions on Valley View? Representative Harrelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Where is it located in Albany County?
It's
Ms. Carlson?
west, isn't it?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it's about 20 miles west and a little bit south of Laramie on I-80.
And just for our edification, do you know the name of the donor back in 63 years ago?
Mr. Chairman, I can get that for you. I've looked at the deed, but I cannot tell you the name.
Okay. Well, we're appreciative of that person for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Seeing none, please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, project number 3 there is Hobbs Elementary. Again, we're asking for demolition-only funds in amount of $834,160 to demolish that existing Hobbs Elementary. We will be back next year after the design is progressed, and we've got an investigation on that existing facility with a cost estimate for abatement of the asbestos.
Any questions on Hobbs School? Seeing none, please proceed.
All right, Mr. Chairman, governor approval, our recommendation, $2,620,670 as a one-time request for demolition, and then $1,286,510 to be effective immediate for the demolition of ARP Elementary School.
Questions on these issues? Okay, seeing none, please continue.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to skip past 55. That's the non-educational, no requests there. I'm going to move on to page 57. Priority.
Before you start, we can read, we can see the amounts, the public can too. We're on page 57. So I'm just going to have you very briefly give us what's going on, and then we can ask questions on any of these that we see on here.
You bet. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Component projects are just large, major maintenance projects where we're going in to help a district with a very large cost that's come in. Often these costs are enough that they have to save up for years, and potentially neglect other needs in other buildings to save enough money to do a job like these. So these are all major maintenance eligible. We request all of these funds effective immediately. That allows them to get the design, start to purchase materials, and be ready to go this summer with these projects. How do we set priorities? How do we determine projects? We look at the deficiencies within a district in their educational buildings only, and then we divide that by their major, and we look out 3 years. And then we take their major maintenance balance, figure their amount of major maintenance coming in those next 3 years. We figure out that ratio, and whoever scores the highest or having the highest level of deficiencies is how we set our priority. Once we have that priority set by district, then we get together with the districts and we talk through the large projects that they have coming, and we work with them to define which is the project that is the highest priority to them in their district. Often will be the most expensive, sometimes it's not. They may just have a particular piece of equipment that's causing them more trouble than others, and they're just like, this is the one we want to fix. So that's how we determine the projects as well as the priority. You will see this year, which we haven't seen in the past, we have put in some parking lots and curb and gutter projects. These are just high needs for these districts. I can tell you, I was still a district engineer up in Basin when was meeting with Lovell on their parking lot and trying to figure out how to give them materials. That was a long time ago, back in the 2000s, and they still got that same parking lot there. So those are the projects. We've got $31,661,322 for the first 19 projects. As we typically do, we are asking for language to allow us, if we have remaining funds from those first 19 projects, to roll them down. We work really hard with the districts to stay very close to these estimates. They can use major maintenance to top them off if they need to. We may have $250,000 left that we could roll to project number 20, and they would throw in the match, and we can get another job or two done. So we do ask for the language to allow that to happen. So again, $31,661,322 approved by the governor, one-time request, full amount to be effective immediately. So with that, I take any questions.
All right, questions on these major maintenance items? Representative Pendergraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This question is probably for Director McComey. Looking down this list, I see Ralph Witter's. It feels like just yesterday that place was built, but it probably has been a number of years, which leads me to wonder, we've talked before, you and I, about planned obsolescence. Could you kind of run through the major maintenance items and give me a typical lifespan, a roof, an HVAC system, that sort of thing?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your roofs are typically 20 years. There are roofs that are put on both state buildings and school buildings. Some of them are 30 years. Your HVAC systems are generally 23 to 25, 27 years before you have a major amount of work on those. Your electrical systems, again, 30, 35. Interesting, as part of the facility condition assessment that was done by Bureau Veritas in the most recent one we had done, we asked the consultants to take a look at what those average life cycles are, and that's how it factors in then to that 20-year look for building condition. We found a few things, and again, we put the facility managers group I talked about earlier together to help us review that, and we're just kicking off that process because, for example, one of the things that they utilize, and these are national standards, these companies go around and do this nationally, they looked at the brick facade on that ratings, and they gave a 50-year life cycle. I don't know about you, but in Wyoming, I don't see us tearing down brick off of buildings in just 50 years. They last a lot longer in Wyoming. Maybe, say, Washington State, where it's raining 350 days a year and things like that, maybe they do. But what I've experienced the last 8-9 years is that we're just doing nip and tuck and pointing on the brick. So we're getting together with facility managers to sit down and say, what do you think? In a few of these cases, we've kind of looked at things that jumped out at us. Do they have a longer lifespan? Through the Mercer process, one of the individuals, one of the companies doing that, their lead person is a master electrician. And he thinks that our values in the FCI scores are a little low on the lifespan. So we want to tweak that. And extend that lifespan. So it's a little bit of an ongoing process, but again, that's something that we hadn't ever done before, and it really is gonna help with this projection. So when the facility managers look at their individual buildings and it says 5 years from now, you need a new boiler or whatever, or it's coming up, that's based on that life cycle cost. We're not saying you need a new boiler. What this is more of a predictive model to tell them, this is something you need to be aware of based on industry standard for your type of boiler. So there are different, not all boilers are created equal, but we tried to take that into account in the new study based on brand and that kind of stuff, that here's your life cycle, take a look at it. And if it's not broke, don't replace it. But it's something in your planning process in the future you need to look at. Again, something that has added, I think, value for the facility managers and for us to make those projections ahead of time.
Follow, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've also spoken about this before, but just briefly, I think Representative Larson was kind of heading this up in having some sort of enforcement mechanism for routine maintenance so that indeed these systems did last as they were supposed to. How's that working out? I know we had a discussion about having teeth in that, and a little update there now that we're a couple of years down the road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So that was passed last year in House Bill 86. And so in House Bill 86, there is a statement, and this isn't just for schools, it's for all the agencies, that thou shall report on your routine maintenance. And so, yes, they're moving forward. And again, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that we're working on right now is to put in the AIM system, our facility force data system, is to put in that structure so that those districts that report into that will be able to see what repairs they're making, when they're making those repairs, did the repair work or did they have to go back and redo it? Those sort of things that'll generate automatically for them. So Sweetwater One just hired a consultant to come out and look at all of their buildings and go through and inventory the various components of a building. So they'll come in, put a, like you see at Walmart or whatever, they're gonna put a barcode on every pump, every boiler, all of that type of stuff, put it into a program that will automatically, when they come in to do their routine maintenance work, it will tell them ahead of time, you need to do routine maintenance and change your filters every 3 months or 6 months. You need to do this on this, and it'll actually show in the building where that's located, that particular pump. Believe it or not, since I've been here, we've found when we went in and found filters that nobody knew were in that when the building was built, and they were 30 years old and never been changed. So if you can imagine your home house filter not getting changed for 30 years, what that might drive and look like. And so this new system is actually gonna then help them forecast, because we get changeover, okay? People are changing, that's part of the changing of the guard, if, you know, the way they are working this. Now that system will help that manager know that it's time to make those changes and do that. So that's kind of where we're at now. Are they reporting to us right now? Exactly, no. Actually, I didn't see where it said who they report to, it just said thou shall report. Now, is that because the districts and agencies are reporting, in the case of the districts, to WDE? Because routine maintenance does not fall under my department, it falls under WDE. So that reporting, yes, I know they are reporting. I've asked WDE. We you know, they sit ex officio on the commission's board. And so they are reporting their expenditures. So the teeth part, that was a big discussion, and it was decided, let's see how this works moving forward in the future.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just also want to add that with the new assessment data that we have available to us, that's something that we are cross-referencing and checking whenever there's a component level request made or a planned work order for major maintenance. We go in and we take a look at that and we see, when are these systems supposed to fail, and have they failed prematurely? And if they have, then we do a deeper dive into it to try to determine what the root cause is so that that can be addressed as well. In some cases, it may be that they don't have the proper water treatment in place and they might be burning through boilers a little bit faster. It's not always necessarily tied to a lack of routine maintenance, but that is something that we're looking at on the front end of the things now, not just forensically.
Representative Haroldson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two questions. One, pre-COVID to today, do we have somewhat of a trend of what we've seen these major maintenance costs skyrocket to? Obviously, there's nothing we can control about it, but it's good to know that metric and window. The second is, on things like this, I start cruising through and I start singling out the different things like HVAC and boiler work or roof work. And one of them kind of caught my eye, and that was Weston One, the Newcastle HVAC system. That's impressive, and not in a good way. So can you talk to me about why we're seeing, say, Glen Rock JSHS HVAC system costing us $1,700, or Pinedale's HVAC and boilers costing us 1.8, when we're looking at just an HVAC system in Newcastle costing us 4.7 million? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Representative Haroldson. I'm going to speak a little more general, not so specific, although I do have specific knowledge of all of these projects. In Western One's case, they have an exorbitant amount of excess square footage and a very low enrollment compared to what their capacity of their school is. So in relation to all the amount of components and systems that they have to take care of, they get a very small amount of major maintenance money. And so they're accruing deferred maintenance, and they adopted deferred maintenance because when the state took over, obviously, not all of their facilities were brand new. So there was probably things that rolled into that as well. But I think your question is a good one, and the reason why I want to address it more generally is that as you dive deeper into the information that's available to you on each one of these projects, you begin to understand exactly what the scope of everything is. In some cases, it may just be a boiler. In some cases, it may be a full mechanical system replacement, such as what we're looking at over in Newcastle for Weston County School District 1. But sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a minute. There's a lot of different remedies and a lot of different systems and components that roll up into that total number that's a request. And just as an example, because it's a real simple one and probably the easiest one to explain things on that you're going to be looking at today is a parking lot in here. And the reason why I want to point it out is there's 3 different sections of that parking lot that have 3 different remedies tied to it that are part of that funding request. One particular portion of that parking lot only needs to be sealed and to have crack fill done. There's another portion of that that simply just needs an overlay of asphalt paving, while the third portion of it is degraded to a point where we're actually going to have to do some subsurface work. So there's really a multitude of different degrees of scope that have to be completed as part of a remedy. And I think what you're seeing up in Newcastle is simply just all of their systems are coming due at one time on that particular building, and that's what's causing so much of the issue. But that is one of the districts that is flagged pretty high on our deficiency index, in that they have a lot more deficiencies than they have available major maintenance money to take care of. And some of these are just simply, I think another important point to make, in some instances, districts have performed their due diligence, and they've gone out and they've had studies and cost estimating done to identify exactly what that scope is and what the relative cost is for that scope. In other instances, the districts really don't know, and they haven't had an opportunity to do that, but they do know that their system is failing and they need some kind of a remedy really quick. And in that case, we tend to rely on our assessment data. And our assessment data breaks it down. So if you've got like 3 different areas of your roof that were replaced at 3 different eras, we're not necessarily coming in and asking for the total dollar value to replace all 3 of those sections, but mainly just the section that's in need of repair at any given time. If they're relatively close to being due at the same time or needing replaced at the same time, and we're going to gain enough economy out of that to make it make sense to go out and replace all of them, even though we could probably squeeze another year or 2 out of one section of roof, then we go ahead and do that. And then the other thing I think that's important to mention is that it doesn't necessarily address a district's preferred remedy. And while we try to determine exactly what's preferable and what makes the most sense to come back and replace those components and systems with, if a district doesn't specifically request that and justify that additional cost for the value upgrade, then we're going to base our funding request off of our assessment data, which is going to be a very similar or like material or component or system that we're going to replace it with. So there could be a little bit of variance or discrepancy there. And a district always has the ability to supplement the component level funding with their own major maintenance, because everything that we ask for on a component level funding level has to qualify for major maintenance expenditures. So if at that point in time a district does decide that they do want to perform some kind of an upgrade because there's justifiable value there, then they are able to kick in some of their funds and do that. In some instances, we're able to talk to those districts and capture that. In other instances, we just don't have time to have that conversation, and we have to wait until we can bring a professional consultant on to advise us and provide us with the data we need to make the appropriate decision. And then we can figure out where that budget should probably be and what the state can do to help the district with that.
There you go. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I was wondering if you could just repeat it one more time for us?
One more time. We'll just have you get that in writing for us. Mr. Richards, I just want to make sure we've got that language for that roll down for the funds, if they have funds available. We've done that before, I assume.
Mr. Chairman, I think we've done it the last 2 times, I believe, and yes, we have that language.
And that language has worked, and you've been able to use that in the past already,
Yes.
so.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. All right, any other questions for the department or on school capital construction? Do you have any closing remarks or anything else that we need to cover?
Mr. Chairman, I think we still have a couple sections to cover.
Okay.
If we may.
I'm trying to set a pace here.
Page 61. I will try to move this. This was probably one of our it's a decent size ask, but maybe a little more complicated than some of these others. Safety and security, priority number 9. The State Construction Department, along with the commission, has requested $10 million in appropriation to support safety and security initiatives. We've been working on safety and security of our school facilities since about 2014. There were an initial amount of funds applied and then another bucket. We had about $13.9 million, I want to say. We have spent and dispersed most of that funding out. We had a safety and security summit last fall. And then we also went out with a preliminary survey just to try to assess what the needs are. What I can tell you is the district's needs are all different. They all have different priorities. They have different needs from a security standpoint on what's really specific in their needs. Our proposal was to look at $2 million to really look at vehicle barricades and secure vestibules. We do have a number of schools that don't have secure vestibules at this point. And then the remaining $8 million we had requested to disperse across the districts based on their ADM because the needs are so varied. Some safety and security projects, if they are existing, they can use their major maintenance money. Some districts do still have small amounts of their 10% major maintenance that went towards safety and security for 3 bienniums. I believe that funding was in place. Some of them do still have some money in that. It is major maintenance funding, but the language allowed them to spend it on new systems. So outside of the norm for normal major maintenance, so they could go in and put in new cameras and those sorts of things. You'll see your wording there said the $723,858 remain in those original CapCon funds that were appropriated. As we were working the reversions to give that $26 million back, we also went in and worked on safety and security projects that have been completed, but they still had money on those line items. So we went through the reversion process there, but those monies then stayed back with that district. They were capital construction monies for security to that district. So that's why that number has gone up, is that we freed up some of those dollars so those districts can go ahead and use those dollars on other projects. When we met with the select committee, they really wanted a more detailed breakdown on the projects than just giving it out by ADM. They were uncomfortable with that and wanted better definition on the projects. So we went out with a more detailed survey, and we asked a number of questions. We actually got 41 districts to respond, which is probably the best response we have ever had. And so we got a lot of data come back. We have 51 facilities out there that do not have secure vestibules. We have 25 districts that need 178 vehicle barricade installations. And then in addition, we asked them, what is your highest priority? And what is the cost of that? What code does it associate with? Because we have specific security codes. The districts came back with that list. That list was $20.1 million to do their number one list. So we asked them also, what's your second highest? And that list came in at $16.2 million. So the total request was 51 secure vestibules, 178 installations of vehicle barricades, and $36.3 million. Now, there are a few of those vestibules that they have listed in that 36.3, but most of them are not in there. What we did is we went and estimated a rough size of a vestibule. In many cases, these schools that don't have vestibules, as the director mentioned earlier, where we used to always build the gyms and all those things in the middle of the building, they also used to put the school office in the middle of the building. And so it can be very difficult in some of these facilities to get the admin moved out to the exterior of the building where they can check people through. So some of those schools, we've looked at making those a little bit larger vestibules, estimated them at $650 a square foot because you got to do the tie-in to those existing buildings. Our estimate for vestibules is about 18 million. About 2.7 million of that is design. And then the barricades, around 2 million of that, 400,000. So our proposal would be that if we want to go down this road, that we look at probably between 2.5 and 3 million that would go to the design and start the design of those vestibules and those vehicle barricades. We would then come back to you next year and make a request for those funding, for those vestibules individually. And then the way the bill is drafted is that they would come in with like a grant application to the commission to say, we want these things. We did go through and look at the highest priority items in our security priorities is exterior doors, number one, that ensure that those are all locking, and interior doors. We totaled those up. There were about $6 million worth of requests that would cover interior door locks. In some cases, those might have been number two highest priority in a district. So, you know, we certainly got a lot of thought to put in. We visited with our commission. We retained our ask at $10 million. So if we look at the governor's approval of $10 million for this one-time request as submitted, And I would take any questions regarding this safety and security funding.
Questions from Ms. Carroll? Representative Carroll, I'm sorry, Pendergraft, Vice Chairman Pendergraft.
Thank you, that's fine. Just don't call me late for dinner. I was really intrigued. You were talking about barricades, you were talking about vestibules, you used the phrase new systems. I ran a bill which died in the Senate, never made it to the cow, but it had to do with school safety and security. It had to do with being able to barricade kids into their classrooms in the event of an active shooter. And this came about because in Sheridan County, there were some devices that were used that were very simple and inexpensive. Fire marshal comes in and says, no, you can't use that. And so our question then back to the fire marshal, which incidentally has not yet been answered, was provide us with a list of devices or systems that we can use. So my question comes down, assuming they come into some sort of an answer to that. What defines a new system? Is there a dollar threshold? Is this the sort of a thing that might be able to be covered under major maintenance as opposed to the districts having to front the cost individually?
Ms. Carroll?
Mr. Chairman, we have been working with the state fire marshal. He is working on that. I've given him some language regarding the funds that are available that districts can tap into. When we talk about a new system, it means there is no existing system. So you can use major maintenance funding to repair, replace, or upgrade an existing system, but you can't go in and put in a new system with major maintenance. So if they want to go in and add additional cameras or put in different, say, mass communication system or something that's brand new, they cannot use major maintenance funding for that. They could use the 10% major maintenance previously, those 3 bienniums of that money that was available. They could use that for new systems. But now to go in and put in a brand new system, they either have the remaining 10% major maintenance funds that were allowed, or they have to have a capital construction appropriation for them to put in brand new systems.
Okay, further questions? I think you asked the one that I was going to ask or something else. Please proceed.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Now it came to, I got it.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
that's okay.
Ms. Carlson, the 3 years of 10%, I know that not all school districts are able to set that aside equally because some of them have major maintenance that they use that on. But when you did your questioning, your survey of the schools, and they got back to you and came up with these dollar amounts for 51 vestibules and all these barriers and things like that, did you also ask them how many of those funds were available that could be used for this purpose?
Mr. Chairman, we did not, but we can pull all that information out of our Operate system. So I can go down and visit with JJ and he'll have that for me in about 15 minutes. You're correct. So we track what can be allocated there. They may still be spending their funds elsewhere, but we still know how much money was available in that bucket. They make the decisions how to prioritize their funding. So if they haven't used it specifically towards a safety and security project that aligns with those safety codes, then we don't show that money being appropriated. And that all those have to come through and be approved by us. So we're tracking that, and I can certainly get that value updated for you.
Yeah, that'd be great, just to have an updated piece of information where, they would cross-reference what they've prioritized for safety and security versus what each district has available for that.
We'll do that.
Thank you. Sorry, that took me a while to pull that out of my memory. All right, please proceed.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I will move on to page 64. This is our major maintenance, 64, 65, our major maintenance request. You do see our standard budget request there, $214,212,379. Major maintenance is our number one priority. every time we come in, that will be our number one priority. Our exception request is $23,652,744. If you remember, our typical major maintenance request used to be for standard budget around 176 million. That big jump is, thank you very much, due to the increase in the multiplier from 2.0 to 2.5%. I think there have been some questions. I think you will see some of our condition scores start to stay lower where we want them as we've made more major maintenance funding available to our districts. So this change is due to cost replacement values. Average daily membership is obviously changing, allowable square footage. Of this $23,652,744, we are asking for $1,122,400 effective immediately. That is for the 2026 major maintenance funding. That funding was in the budget bill last year that did not come through and did not pass. Those districts are, they are statutorily entitled to those dollars. So we request those monies effective immediately, and we will make them on our fourth quarter payment to make the districts whole on their major maintenance funding for 2026. I also did just take a look, major maintenance balance statewide, $198,664,378, so roughly $199 million sitting out there in major maintenance accounts in the districts. If we look at our 2025 deficiency value from our facility condition assessment, it sits right at $278 million. So you can see we still have a lot of deficiencies out there in excess of the major maintenance funding we have available. So our recommendation, governor approval, $23,652,744 for the ongoing request, and further $1,122,400 effective immediately. And I'd take any questions if they're there for major maintenance.
Okay, any questions on major maintenance? Seeing none, please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that completes our request. The next one is engineering and technical. It's a standard budget request of 1.9 million. So I think that concludes our budget requests. If there are any specific questions.
Okay, so we've completed the exceptions. Any general questions for school CapCon? Representative Angelos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, I just have a quick kind of housekeeping, and this could be a typo, it could not, I'm kind of looking. So on page 32, you can see there is a general fund expenditure of $78,921. Does that need to stay general fund, or should that be school foundation account? Or I was kind of looking, is that part of the TRP request of some of those computers that are shared between? Could you kind of clear that for us? And Director Hibbert, could you?
Director McComey? Oh, go
Chairman
ahead.
Bear, Representative Angelos, that's actually, that was money that was provided in the general fund. It's not an expenditure. It was in place of, we were looking at additional travel expenses because our expenditures have gone up. However, through the budget office, there was money provided through the inflationary fund, and that money was provided as general fund and then added into that budget in that manner. That's where that came from. It had not been there previously. Previously, this had been an entirely school-funded budget. Does that answer your question?
Okay. All right, any other general questions or comments? Okay. Director, would you like to make any closing comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, don't know if you want to go through the telework and some of that stuff. I know A and I talked about that in general. Philosophy-wise, for me, I think it's best to be in the office, given our particular situation. We have one We have one full-time and one AWAC position that are actually telework. Tracking and watching their work, we would know immediately the full-time person because they pay all the bills for the school districts and take that in. So we know that person is busy all the time. Within our particular agency, again, we have 30 folks. We're all on the one level floor. It's a big square building. I personally feel that being able to work collaboratively and as a team works well, where I can just walk down the hallway and talk and visit with somebody. I struggle a little bit with the telework definition in the fact that prior to COVID, we kind of teleworked because our project managers, a third of our team, are on the road and we're working all the time. I have a cell phone tied to my waist here that I get my Gmail off of. And when I'm on vacation, because I don't call vacation a vacation, I call it a work postponement with the number of emails that I get. I'm using it at night before I go to bed. I check my emails. When I get up in the morning, I check my emails. So is that teleworking, or is that just using our electronic things to the benefit of the agency? I've got the figures all here, but most of our folks do have a telework agreement. I do, for example, but I don't really consider it telework because, again, when I'm on the road, I'll check from, the motel at night, things like that. What I see is our agency taking advantage of the electronics and the information that are the components that are provided to us to be more efficient. When I transferred from YDOT, and actually I was interim director for workforce services, I came over to the school facilities, and in one of the very first meetings I had, our CFO, Jeremy, was homesick in the first week, and we were going to have a meeting. And so he was at home in bed, and we had a telework meeting. He was the only one gone. Now, within our office, do we have people telework some? Yes, it is an advantage in that I'm sure you've all experienced this where the plumber says, okay, I can be there from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock, and so you're waiting home. People will take their computer with them while they're waiting for the plumber to show up and work. So I really see it as a situation where it makes us work smarter, not harder, and being able to do that, where in the past, again, as I mentioned early on, we don't have overlap in positions other than really our project managers. A lot of folks are work specific. We try and get a little bit of cross training, but they have their day job to take over on the other. So when somebody's gone, if they can take advantage of using their computer, we do that, and it might be for 3-4 hours. Laura and I sat down and tried to estimate, how many hours a week, and I think in there we said there might be, or I think it asked for days, and looking at all 30 of us, I couldn't even really say we'd spend a day teleworking amongst the 30 of us in a month. But it's kind of ingrained in what we do and how we work just because we're so mobile in the field, so. The big, beautiful bill, Mr. Chairman, we received no federal funds, so that was a non-issue for us, thank goodness. Didn't slow us down, and we were able to move forward, and again, our 680-900 report, or 600-900 report, you have a copy of that, so.
I heard somebody. Oh, Senator Grew, please.
Thank you. And thanks, Del, for that explanation. And as one of the ones that's on that call sheet of yours a lot of the time, I can attest to the fact that he does do a lot of work off regular hours, and I appreciate it. I did have a question about the major maintenance component, and then plus this other deal that we've been talking about trying to work into a plan where we do regular routine maintenance and we help the school districts out. And I know how important that's going to be to large districts and small for two different reasons. Large districts because they're large, and it's a lot to wrangle. Small districts because they don't have the capability. I got one guy doing 12 things, and so it'll help both ways. But for us to be able to talk about the cost of doing it versus the savings,
when we get to the floor, when we're talking about this, and I know we're talking about major maintenance now, we'll be talking about this other stuff later. Is there a way you can help us build some sort of metric? I mean, you've all got a lot of experience at this, and you know what it costs to not do routine maintenance, what it's cost us in the past, what, not doing that boiler at the right time and not doing even major maintenance items and what the cost can be. But how to put together a metric for us that's credible. I mean, not one of these things about how you measure advertising revenue or, things that are a little less fun. This is something that I think, given the experience of the people I'm looking at right here, I think you have it. And I'd like to see us try to figure out something that we can program that then we can take to the floor and talk to, when we're talking to the folks on the floor and say, this is what you're spending, this is what the return is for that. That we can quantify and do so in a way that's not, that we're not just like, oh, come on, you guys, where'd you come up with that? Then we can say, I got 150 years worth of experience in this field, in this state, that's telling us this. How do you feel about that?
Mr. Chairman, this is really a passion of mine, and it's the reason that I asked to do this strategic plan. When I left the state and I went out and worked as a consultant, I was involved in a couple, 2 or 3 strategic plans in other states, but not for the state as a whole, but for example, the Oregon DOT, Michigan DOT, Virginia DOT, when they were trying to do some of the things that we're doing right now. I think really in Wyoming, we're kind of a leader in that. But they were looking at this wholesale, how do we project forward on what we do and how do we do exactly what you were asking? The routine maintenance, again, there's 3 pillars that kind of stack on top of each other. And that's why I came back and presented to this committee last year and presented the idea of doing a strategic plan. I'm not aware of any state that has done a statewide strategic plan. So as part of that strategic plan, what we'll be looking at is how much money should we truly be spending on routine maintenance? Routine maintenance is based on level of service. And so each building has a different level of service. How do we look at that today? I don't know if we look at that. It's gut feel. We've been doing this in this building or this type of building for 10, 20, 30 years, and this is kind of what we think needs to be spent from an agency or a budget request. So level of service, if you break that down, how much money would you spend on routine maintenance in a warehouse that has just boxes, of course it's heated or whatever? How much money would you put towards a 10,000 square foot building there versus a 10,000 square foot hospital? Your routine maintenance is going to be much higher in a hospital than it is in this thing that maybe only have somebody vacuum it once a month. I don't know. And so that's one of the things that we're going to look at. We're going to try to set up these metrics and have KPIs, to use that term. What's the payoff? What's the net worth versus the investment? Because one of the things that we've kicked around, and it would be pretty difficult, but one of the things being addressed in the school side right now in the lawsuit is this adequacy, suitability, whatever term you want to use, of the building. And so we have buildings right now in Wyoming, in school districts. Some of them are 100 years old, some of them are 80 years old. How are we teaching those students 100 years ago compared to today? How are we teaching them 80 years ago compared to today? Now, we look at capacity and condition right now to build a new school, but we know the age of these systems and how they time out. So when we came back, the national average is between 2% and 4% on major maintenance dollars. And we actually hired a consultant back in 2000, started in 17, 18, and 19, and looked at where, for Wyoming school buildings, and then we went out and looked at those buildings. They looked at how much is being spent on what it's being spent on every building, went through that, and we arrived at 2.5%, and that's the funding that we're asking for right now in that matrix. But I'm asking myself, because of the suitability and trying to upgrade these for as you teach, is 2.5% right? Or maybe we fund major maintenance at a little bit lower level, knowing that the buildings are gonna age a little bit quicker, but maybe at a, say a 25, pick your number, 25-year, 30-year interval, we do a major upgrade to the building because we didn't spend as much on major maintenance. We're gonna put more of those dollars not only to major maintenance, but to reconfigure that school to how we're teaching students today and take care of that suitability. Because right now, it's kind of on this other cusp about spending money on suitability. Can we figure out a smarter, more efficient way to do that? I don't have an answer for you, but that's the things that I'm trying to look at in the strategic plan is, again, are we spending the right amount? I will tell you, because I've worked with the state agencies one-on-one, we're not spending enough on routine maintenance on a number of buildings. When we had the big issues back in 17, I think it was, with the DOC building, the Wyoming State Penitentiary, we went back and looked at their requests and how much they'd had on routine maintenance. And their request that they were asking for at that time was the same as when the building was built. 20 years, you think it's cost a little more and you need a little more people because the building's aging? You sure do. But the requests weren't there. So we worked to get that fixed. I think you'll see that across agencies that, again, it's, I'm gonna age myself, the Fram ad, you can spend a little bit now and save yourself a whole lot of money later by doing that routine maintenance.
Follow-up, Senator Groove.
Thanks, because, yeah, it is so much, like we were talking about Fremont County before, and we go through these Mercers, and I've learned a lot about them in the last couple of years. But, you know, you go through this metric and you decide, well, that big building isn't suitable now if we're going with little kids, and so we're gonna build a new building, and that you go through a step-by-step process and you come out with that answer. And then the committees and the commission, facilities committee, they know that where that's coming from, and that's kind of where I was getting at too, is, you know, I mean, this building, we just did $300 million renovation. What does it cost per, I mean, I know we had a little water leak and I know we've had a few other issues, but versus what's going down as we head down the street here, yeah, there's some problems and we haven't been taking care of them. But with the school side, you know, and I hope we could get there with all our buildings, is build in something so we can see that and we can tell the members that, boy, you know, no matter what happens, this is what you should be spending across the board. And if you don't, this is what it's gonna cost. And sometimes we'll have to make that judgment based on economic realities at the time. I mean, we always do, but that was what I was trying to get at is, let us know as we go through this, what we need to do to help build that as something that we can really hang our hat on.
Yeah, you know, again, been in state government 45, 6, 7 years. I'm almost 70 years old. Lived in Wyoming all my life. I know the up and down boom cycles. So part of this strategic plan that I talked to this committee about, and I know the contractors are certainly interested in it. It's something we're seeing right now here in this county with all the data centers coming in, is in those boom cycles, do we need to be spending $600 or $800 million on facilities and creating our own inflation and doing all that work and bringing a lot of out-of-staters in to do it? And it's more expensive if you bring in an out-of-stater because he's got to form it. So we're creating our own inflation. Or maybe we spend $500 million, put that $300 million into an account that in the down cycle, at least we can keep some construction going, keep our workforce going, allow industry to understand what that's going to look like so they can hire workers, they can invest in equipment, they can train people to be able to do that and provide for all of you a recommendation of where funding's going to be. Again, I know based on the bust and boom where that may be, it may be there, it may not, but at least have some funding level where we're not going, oh my gosh, we need $1 billion tomorrow. We can plan ahead on how we do that. That's another component of that strategic plan.
Okay. Yes. Other questions or comments? Representative Harrelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as we're talking about maintenance, Can you talk just a little bit about your heart or your thoughts on the model of square footage figuring? So we're figuring square footage on usable square footage, not actual square footage when it comes to maintenance funds, from what I remember from my time in that. And some schools that really doesn't matter. Some schools that's really does matter. And so we're asking them to maintain these structures, but yet at the same time, we're paying them to maintain on usable square footage. And are we at a point where we're finding that that's bringing us at a more accelerated pace into maybe even replacement or large maintenance, major maintenance? Can you talk about that?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Your question earlier on Weston 1 is a perfect example. So let's take state buildings. State buildings, we take the total square footage and we don't base it on the number of workers in the building. We pay the whole thing based on that square footage. Schools are different. We pay for that based on the square footage and then the ADM, the average daily membership. What that does in Weston 1, I think they're at 35% capacity for that building. It's in really nice shape. We just went up and walked it again. And I'm going, should we tear half of this building down? But how do you tear half of the building down? Because if you try to right size it for the number of students they have, you still have a big gym, a big cafeteria based on 70% more students in there and all of that stuff. So to right size it, would you even have enough to get to that actual square footage? Would you even have enough classrooms then to serve them? And I have some real heartburn about tearing down a perfectly good building. I don't know about you all, but I do. And so one of the bills that the select committee worked on and heard, and they voted to move forward, the bill is to provide the difference, the excess square footage calculation from 115% to 135. And I believe that would allow about another $31 million to go into the major maintenance account. It won't go across the board to everybody. It'll go to those ones that have that excess square footage to help pay for that, to maintain it. And so hopefully that bill will pass this year, but that's the breakdown in the component projects. That's why we're at where we're at with component projects. My poster child for that when we started this back under when I was here director previously was in Saratoga at their high school. So based on the square footage of that, their ADM, they'd have to take 10 years of the entire district's major maintenance money to replace the ductwork and the heating system in the school. When the school was built 30-some years before, instead of using metal ductwork, they used a fiberboard. And it was all just disintegrating and holes and fibers blowing around and everything else. Well, they couldn't do any work on any building for 10 years to save up enough major maintenance to do that one project. So I said, well, we got to fix that so they can keep school open, component project. So as Mr. Rex has talked about, we're looking at how many dollars they have. We're looking out into the future at what their needs are, and we're trying to get it to where they have enough major maintenance currently, plus 3 years of projection, plus what we're projecting they have for work, to where that district will have enough money to take care of their major maintenance. That's why we're asking for that component project funding. And I can tell you, so we're tracking those metrics on a year-by-year basis to see if that difference in major maintenance available versus need is there, and we're making pretty good headway over the last couple of years with these requests to bring that down. So what does that mean in the future? As we continue to work on this and it comes down, our component requests in the future probably will come down, particularly with the increase in major maintenance. But as we do those ones to try and get that 1-to-1 ratio on what we forecast they need and what they have, it's there. Now, Administrator Carlson talked about, here's how much major maintenance we have now available. And it was it was pushing, what, 200 million. Back in 2015, 16, I'd come before select committee, I'd come before this committee, and we'd talk about, well, the question was, well, they got $200 million worth of major maintenance, and why do they need more? That's a lot of money to be putting out there. Well, it takes time to build up enough major maintenance to do those big component projects. And we track that. So I'm gonna use, I think it's Fremont 25, Shoshone?
24.
24, School District 24 in Shoshone. It's a newer building. I thought it's kind of brand new, but it's actually, I think, about 7, 8 years, 9 years old now. But they've done a really good, it's a new school. You don't need as much major maintenance on a new school. And they've built their funds up because when I talked about earlier, roofs are about 20 years. Your HVAC's 23, 25 years. At some point, they're gonna have some of these $4 million roofs, $4 million heating systems coming within a 2 or 3 year time span. They need to build that up and have that available for them for that projection. But we're tracking that metrics within the department.
Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to say again, thank you to what has got to be the most innovative state construction department in the entire United States, if not in the world. I do think that I would like to nominate you for an Oscar, Representative Pendergraft. I don't know if you've got an extra available. And all kidding aside, thank you guys for the work you're doing, and thank you for the thoughtfulness that you're finding cost savings and ways to be innovative and thoughtful and collaborative throughout all of everything we've talked about today. Incredible. So because you are innovative, I have an outside of the box question for you.
Okay.
And this is in regards to where we see school buildings that are way under capacity. Do we have a policy for, or examples of creative sharing? For example, my grandfather is 100 years old, and where he lives is in a elementary school building. So part of the building they converted to senior living, part of the building they still use for the kiddos. And one, he loves it because then there's young people around all the time, and the cross programming is amazing. But in this small town, it was a creative reuse for them to say, we have a building that's still in really good shape, but we only need half of it. So are there examples like that in Wyoming, or do we have policies that would allow for those kind of conversations to even occur in our communities in terms of a community use of the space that is maybe extra for the district?
Director, I'm going to tag on to that question because I have a question for you. Based on your comment about tearing down buildings that we really don't want to tear down, we're seeing some reductions right now. We don't know how long that'll last. It could be years down the road. We're wondering, why did we spend all that money keeping this building up? So my question to tag on to that, is it possible to mothball portions of some of these buildings so that you can keep the costs down while you're maintaining the rest of the building as a usable building?
Yep. Mr. Chairman, I'm not aware of any of the situations. That's pretty innovative, I think. So a lot of states, they're back to the model we were prior to Campbell rulings, where it's really district-owned, district-run, community dollars that went into funding that through a block grant. So it is different than what we have. It might take some kind of legislation to allow that, but we still have that local control, that local board action, and those sort of things. So I can give you some examples of dual use of buildings. So when we're looking there at Riverton, for example, they have maybe a BOCES program over in part of the building. They have some daycare that we don't pay for, but they have daycare in part of those buildings. We can mothball, and we do mothball schools. The district can come to the commission and ask for a mothball. That's for 3 years. And then they can come back again and ask to mothball a school for another 3 years. What it does do is they don't, and Shelby can correct me because I know she's the answer if I answer this wrong. So I'm saying that so she doesn't kick me under the table, but they don't drive, well, they get 10% major maintenance, or they don't drive any major maintenance for mothballed.
Mothballed, they generate 10%. They can spend.
All of it.
They can spend as much as they want, but they only generate 10% of the square footage for that building.
And so we do have quite a few schools that are mothballed around the state. And so the districts are looking at that. And if they don't, then sometimes they'll demo them, sometimes they'll tear them down. I know a lot of the old white hot buildings, for example, when we sold those around the states, they were built in the 40s and things like that. Gillette's a perfect example where they remodeled it and made it kind of a visitor type of center. Cody made it into a senior citizen home type of thing, the office that I worked in up there. So that happens at that side. The school districts, again, they have the ability, can they mothball, can they just sell it and it becomes somebody else comes in and modifies a building for the community, things like that. But I haven't seen and I haven't heard any discussion on dual use, private sector, or whatever the other buildings in Wyoming. I'm not aware of that.
And Director, did I hear you right? We can mothball a whole school, but can we mothball a portion of a school?
They may be able to, but
I'm
I
seeing
don't.
some things in
Yeah,
the
Mr.
background.
Chairman, they may be able to, but I don't know how much it would save based on the heating of the whole building, the electrical. Yeah, if you're turning off all the lights, you'd save some, but you're probably still gonna have to go in from time to time and clean them and do all that kind of stuff. It could save wear and tear on the walls and the carpet and all of that stuff that in the long run would save some. But again,
Plumbing's usually not divided up into sectors.
exactly.
I got it.
Yeah, you'd have to keep the heat on, in the winter months and things like that, so stuff didn't freeze up. But again, Newcastle isn't the only one that we see that situation on. We could provide the committee with a report. We keep track of that on excess square footage, even by school, and by district probably was what you'd be interested in, because there are some districts that have no excess square footage. And there are other ones that have 200% or more of excess square footage, so they're generating about 50% of what they need in major maintenance dollars. And that was deliberate action, by the way, I think by the state and the legislature. So when Campbell took over, there was a lot of extra square footage based on how we operate today and how we would allocate square footage for buildings, new buildings, as we move forward. And so excess square footage, originally, they were paying for like 200%. And then it went down to, I think it was 160 or something, then it went down to 135, then it went down to 115 where we're at today. And so when I came back, again, I had kind of 3.5 years to think about what could I have done, or what should I have done different when I was director before. And so when I got back, I said, hey, I want to try and think about this stuff and work on it. And so one of them, the first ask with select committee was to look at major maintenance, try to get to 2.5, try to get this allocated for this excess square footage. But the legislature did want to see that excess square footage go down. And that's why they weren't funding all of the major maintenance as an incentive from the district to get rid of older buildings that they don't need. And so there's kind of a, give and push on that. And again, I think that, and you'll see, like Fremont 25, they realized, Riverton, they realized what was happening to them. And they actually came to us and said, here's how we think we can fix this. Let's do a study. Let's figure out how we can move forward over the next 5, 6, 7 years and get rid of this excess square footage, and they're doing it. So the districts are paying attention to that. It comes bottom line dollar. I've talked to a number of districts when I came back, and I said, okay, how's your routine maintenance dollars? Are you spending it all? Are you not spending it all? Again, that goes through WDE. They report on it. And I can tell you Rock Springs, Sheridan 2, those folks, they said, we're actually spending more district dollars on routine maintenance than we have available through the block grant for routine maintenance. So I have talked with WDE and stuff, and as we move forward in this study, what's that look like? We can feed that information into the block grant formulas or whatever in the future as we determine kind of what that needs to look like in the future for not only schools, but state buildings also.
So, Director, you mentioned that you're building some things kind of modularly so that you can add on a module for a cafeteria, that type of thing. I hope as you're doing that, you are thinking about those potential mothball a section here, mothball a section there as you're adding on. I hope that's part of the part of that effort as you do it, because you could,
Yep.
as you add water on, you could have that section shut off. Just an idea there. I hope that's included in your thought process. I have one last question. Make sure that the committee's pretty well covered on questions before I get to this. I just wanted to know about your travel, both in-state and out-of-state. I can see here between the capital construction for the state and the school foundation, you guys are around $300,000 in this request for in-state, and about 40,000, it's less than 40,000 on the out-of-state. And my question is, how's that looking? What do we anticipate in the future? But past-wise, is this significantly more, about the same?
Mr. Chairman, that's a very good question. We actually were looking for a budget increase. We sat down, talked to the budget office, as was mentioned, and found some help through the budget office to help us with travel. We were way under. We hadn't asked for quite some time, and back when there was some cuts being made because of the state's budget, there was cuts to the travel budget. And if you go back in the 2000, actually probably in the 2022 timeframe, we didn't have an awful lot of projects going on, so we weren't traveling as much with the PMs and things like that, and this is both sides of the house. And then with the Mercer studies, you talk about a drain on the travel budget, because we're sending a project manager, a planner out there numerous times. Shelby and I are going out numerous times. We're meeting with the school board, and to the point that on our commission meetings, we're not even taking our normal staff. Laura, for example, is remoting into that. JJ's remoting in. We don't have enough money to cover what we're doing right now. We've started that about 6 months ago. We have very little out-of-state travel. I went to the national meeting, as I mentioned, and simply because JJ was getting the award, and I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about what we're doing here in Wyoming. And so we went to that, but we just haven't done a lot of out-of-state training. We're looking at doing some design build, so we recently sent a couple of people to a design build seminar. And so trying to get educated on how you do that. But I don't do a lot of personal travel, when I retired. And when I came back and saw what it was costing for motel rooms now versus what it was costing when I was director previously, like a doubling, I was like, and the budget hadn't increased. So we were really, really in need of that. That was going to be one of our higher priorities, was that, but it's taken care of, and I think we're in good shape right now with the help that the budget office did for us.
And Director, we appreciate the lodging tax that you're helping out with as well.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're good with questions. I think we've wrapped that up very well. We appreciate your time and appreciate your willing to share details with us. I think we had a couple of things that we're looking for a little more information on from you down the road. And other than that, thank you very much. And stick around here while we have the good senator come up and share with us about the board. And if there's any other questions, we can turn to you for.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Chairman Landon, thank you for being here today.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I forgot what I was going to tell you.
Well, I've forgotten what I was going to ask you. It's that time of day for guys like us.
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I really appreciate the time you've spent on something that I've spent the last 15 years while I've been in the legislature working on. And we learn every year. We learn as we go. We come up with things. We came up with some things today that I want to look into. I think that's, you bring up a very good point with some of these facilities. But let me first of all just acknowledge the Vice Chairman. Thank you for all your work, and it was a pleasure working alongside with a brand new committee, really. Senator Rothfuss and I, we're the long in the tooth guys, and then all the rest hopefully have learned quite a bit along the way. Part of what we did, Mr. Chairman, was to set up our meetings so that we could provide that education and get people up to speed. A lot of good things going on, thanks in part to the director, and thanks, I think, to a select committee that has learned a lot through the years We have some policy considerations, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to take long because the shadows are getting long out there. And so just a couple of things to think about to all of you colleagues. From a policy standpoint, as we roll out school choice, and that looks at 2 or 3 different things, as we know. As students choose to stay at home, or if we put them in a charter environment or a private school environment, part of the way we take care of our buildings out across there is based on ADMs. And if we're pulling those students out of schools, we still own those physical plants, and we have invested greatly in those physical plants. Well, that district at that point then does not get that ADM, and therefore gets a reduction in the major maintenance payments that we're paying them. So we just need to be aware of that. And I think that the Vice Chairman and I are very much aware of it, and we know that we've got that policy consideration going forward. How do we want to fix that? What do we want to do with that? In the same arena, we have a line item that you saw today of about 1.8 million that we will lease a facility in my neck of the woods. Up in Mills, we stood up a new charter school. I have heard on the street that that was a $14 million building. The two of us and the Vice Chairman really didn't hear much about that. We don't know about square footages. We don't know what considerations were put into that building. And so that's a kind of a policy area that I want to be aware of and take a look at is that's a pretty big line item that we've committed ourselves to ongoing. Per year, we have to lease that facility. In some respects, we're not even sure what we're leasing there, but at any rate, the school is up and going, and it's our commitment through statute that we're going to take care of that, of those children that are going to that school. So just a couple of examples of things that I know we're going to have to work on as we go. But great questions today, and I appreciate all of you on the Appropriations Committee and the time that you've given to this budget and continue to give to the legislature, Mr. Chairman. I'll stand for any questions you might have.
All right, we appreciate your service as well as Representative Angelos, Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator, for being here and for those policy conversations. And to the co-chairman here to my left, thank you. I know I'm going to continue to learn a lot from you through this process as well. I think that you had mentioned this to me in passing, one day, like, hey, this is something we need to start thinking about. Have there been conversations around a common lease rate across the state or maybe regional in terms of like what the market can support? So I guess that's one question. And then the other one is in consideration to one of our new requests, which now I can't figure out what page it's on. The contingency for leases is like, as we're like, is it going to be 2 new charter schools, 6 new charter schools? And you talked about using the existing leases to create an average. And then I think, oh wait, this is an anomaly. This lease here in Natrona County, I guess, was that set aside as an anomaly when that average was created? Or maybe we don't know if we're overshooting or not, but that just came to mind. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, great thoughts. All of those have been in my head, various nights over the interim. I think the answer is we have addressed this through the years, and back in the previous time that the director was with us, I think was about the time that we were looking into this lease payment situation and trying to craft legislation and statute that would recognize that you kind of have to pay the going rate in a given area. I think that it's probably time to take a good look at that whole arena again. And when you hear things like the agency indicated to us today, that we have perhaps as many as 6 more charter schools on the way. there's a little bit of urgency, I think, that comes to the select committee to make sure that we're working with the commission, with the agency to bring you what you need to figure out what's this gonna cost? And what are we willing to pay for that? Interesting question was asked of some of our people regarding the Alpine School, for example. And one of the ones that individuals involved up there said, well, if this doesn't work and the school just doesn't thrive and doesn't work, you'll buy the building back from us, correct? And of course, the answer was no. But so we have all of that sort of thing going on out across that we're going to have to just be aware of. So many of us, I think, are committed to choice, school choice, but we just have to work it through as we stand that all up. And I hope that makes sense to everyone. Sorry, I don't have a more definitive answer on what level are we willing to pay these leases.
Follow up?
Follow up, Mr. Chairman, and I realize I'm getting a little bit into the weeds here, but I know that A&I has a lot of great data on the leases the state has across, Wyoming has across the state, right? So we could maybe look by community or district, that A&I data, but I also wonder if we couldn't reach out to our local chambers or economic development organizations, because it's something in my day job, I track what the going rates are for commercial space in my community and sort of gather that to see, like, are these normal rates within the community, or are they way low or way high? Maybe there's data points I'm thinking that are out there we could examine. Thank you.
You know, the director might want to get that one, Mr. Chairman, but I do want to add just another little tidbit of information. What's concerning, or at least putting some urgency behind us taking a look at how we operate, that school up in Natrona County was stood up at the same time that the school district was shutting down 2 schools, 2 of which are pretty good buildings. And so somewhere in there, the vice chairman and I and the rest of the select committee, the commission, the agency, we're going to be looking at all that. So take it away, Director.
Yep, Mr. Chairman, we do look at individual data points. We use A&I's information plus other information by community. So we look at what those average leases are for commercial buildings in each community. Now, Alpine's a little bit of an outlier. They really don't have anything. So what we did in Alpine is we looked at Afton and we looked at Jackson, and we went back and forth and kind of massaged that, reached out to the local community and said, does this look correct with these figures? And that's how we did Alpine itself. But in general, if we have that exact data that you're talking about available, that's what we're using for that lease rate.
Okay. Further questions for the senator? All right. Senator Landon, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Appreciate all of you, and look forward to the weeks ahead. Yeah,
all right.
Thanks.
All right. Director, I'm thinking right now we're scheduled for a break, and we wanted to try to go ahead and move into something for tomorrow. We had an executive session planned. Can we take a 15-minute break and then come back to executive session? Would that work?
Mr. Chairman, that would be fine.
Okay. All right, that's what we'll do. We're on recess for 15 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, before there is a motion to resolve into executive session, we're still live on Zoom, and I wanted to at least discuss tomorrow's agenda and provide some verbal notice. First of all, the OSLI was unable to provide all of the fiscal information, so the Smoke Buster Program legislation will be postponed to a time as determined by the chairs in January. Beyond that, the committee, per your agenda and prior action, will commence at 7:30 a.m. tomorrow, and you will discuss 3 agencies: the Department of Family Services, the Staple Token Commission, and the Military Department. And then you will adjourn for the holidays and your return in January.
Okay, Director, do we need to make a motion on that bill? Because I think we tabled it. The motion was to table it until Friday. So would it be proper to go ahead and make another motion on that bill to table it until January?
Mr. Chairman, yes.
Okay, I'll entertain such a motion.
Once,
Moved by Senator Grew.
we can't do this in an executive session.
We're not in yet.
We're on? Okay. Good try, though. Perfect.
So discussion on the motion?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. You were looking at, I'm sorry, the chairs were looking at what date?
So the motion on the table is to extend the table of that bill to January, or
Just,
January
oh,
meeting.
on
January
January 12th. In
12th.
January,
Yep,
January 12th.
January 12th.
January 12th.
now I've got a date.
We're gonna do it the first day, no, the second
Second week.
week, okay.
Okay, so that's the motion, yes, move to table until January 12th.
Moved by Senator Grew, now that he knows what he moved. Seconded by Representative Haroldson. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Senator Grew's motion, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, that carries. All right, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session. Moved by Representative Angelos, seconded by Senator Grew. All those in favor of going into executive session, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, and do we need division on that? No, okay, well, that carries. That carries. All right, we'll go ahead and go into executive session then. We'll wait for